Thank you, Brian. Good morning, everyone. My name is Meir. I am CEO of Kyomei, and we grow meat proteins inside of plants. And before I get into the business presentation, I should say this is really a personal journey for myself and my co-founder, Kyoko, who really came into this with motivations of using our own skill sets to directly address issues of social impact in the environment. That's really sort of our motivation behind the whole thing. And this is how we're going to do it. There we go. So as we all know, there's been growing demand for plant-based meat across the world. And increasingly, more and more companies are looking for ingredients to make their plant-based meat taste better. And why? Why is this? Meat alternative sales grew 45% in 2021 alone, yet 2/3 of Americans would eat more of it if it only tasted better. And we see this data replicated across the world. And beyond that, they don't only want it just to taste better, they want to produce sustainably. So the real question is, can we crack taste sustainably? And so then the question is, what in fact makes meat taste like meat? What is the taste of meat? And so the science overwhelmingly shows that this is a result of the heme iron proteins that are in the animal tissue. So heme iron proteins have been tested by consumers, and over 75% find that plant-based protein with heme iron proteins or myoglobin tastes significantly better than without. We've done this in our own lab testing, and the results were unequivocal. The presence of these heme-binding proteins in products make a significant impact on taste. And at Kyomei, we are growing this protein, and perhaps most innovatively, we're growing it entirely inside of plants and doing it sustainably. So how do we do this? Kyomei is really developing a patent-pending approach using the structure of the plant, so using fundamental breakthroughs in plant science and really food production to grow the proteins inside of the plants. Now, some of the judges have some of the more patent-pending material in their information, so I can't, certain limited by public disclosure. But if you think about the notion of your meat and the notion of a cow, as we eat meat today, the cow acts as a protein production platform. But imagine if we could create the exact same protein, molecularly, nutritionally, but create it in a plant production platform. And this is really just the beginning, because Kyomei has innovated a platform that fundamentally allows multiple animal proteins to be created inside inside of this structure, and to do so in a very sustainable way. We're taking our platform and our first product, heme iron proteins, into a massively growing market. Barclay's estimating this market at $140 billion by 2030, and growing in the US exponentially. Now let's just think about it. Plant-based is arguably the biggest disruption to happen in the food space over the last few decades. In order to achieve this growth, there's a number of challenges that we still have to overcome. This is a little bit on the industry landscape. In the beginning, you had typical plant-based patties. You had bean burgers or tofu patties. These weren't the exact taste or color of the meat, weren't necessarily carbon negative, but were and are still relatively cost efficient to scale. Then you move into fermentation, which tasted better, but still not the exact taste and color of meat. Not necessarily carbon negative, a bit more sustainable, and not as efficient to scale, mostly due to the capex on bioreactors. And then you had the cell-based. Was the exact taste and color, or is the exact taste and color, not really sustainable and certainly not cost effective. With the rise of molecular farming and Kyomei's approach, we not only produce proteins with the exact same taste and color as meat, it's done in an entirely sustainable way, and perhaps commercially, most importantly, it is very efficient to scale. A little on our business model. While we're building an entirely new platform of production, we're tapping into established and already commercialized supply chains. So, as an example, you have companies like Chipotle and Taco Bell who are increasingly looking to make their own formulations of plant-based meat, and even local companies like Moosewood in Ithaca, who is actively looking to make their own formulations. We've spoken to them about this. And then you have ingredient companies like Kerry and Ingredion, who are also looking for ways to improve their formulations for their customers. At the same time, big CPG companies, the Kellogg's of the world, are looking actively separately for their own ingredients to make their products taste better. And so we're platform agnostic. We look to be the Android platform, if you will, of the fourth generation of alternative meat, and that's really our route to market. A little on our timeline, we're at lab scale and stage. We're proving this out in the lab right now. We're part of the Indy Bio Accelerator as of right now, which is the largest biotech and food tech accelerator in the world. Into 2022, we move into positive revenue, scaling into greenhouses, and over the next few years, building our own facilities. And what's really interesting, if you look at the pro forma, is once we scale, we can scale very, very rapidly. And the reason is because we're only constrained by the amount of land we can source and the amount of greenhouse space. The capex on the scaling is very, very limited. And then our team. We built a very diverse and well-rounded with kind of breadth and depth on our team. Again, my name is Meir. I'm CEO. My background's in law and entrepreneurship. I did my MBA at the Side Business School at the University of Oxford, where I met my co-founder, Kyoko. Kyoko has spent over 15 years in plant science labs in both Oxford and Syngenta. Did her PhD in biological chemistry at the University of Tokyo. And I should say, Kyoko's wanted to be a plant scientist since she's 10 years old because she grew up in a pristine area and read articles that said, hey, using science, I can prevent deforestation and actually make an improvement on the environment. And she's been on that journey ever since. She linked up with me, who went to a business school devoted to social impact. So it's really that confluence of effect. And Suzanne has joined us. Suzanne has almost 30 years in the CPG and food and ingredient businesses, has worked with almost every major food and ingredient business in the world, with significant experience of taking plant-based products directly to market, so very much tapped into that commercial market. And Suzanne's inspired by the notion of using food to democratize health across the world. We're joined by some of our additional senior team. Marta runs our senior molecular biologist, spent 8 years in the Max Planck Institute in Potsdam. And we're joined, as you can see, by a tremendous team of advisors who are probably the best in the world at plant protein production and understanding. I think as a team, we're all inspired, even the advisors among us, we're all inspired by the notion of being able to use fundamental breakthroughs in science to actually make an impact in the real world that we all live in and our future generations will live in. Why grow New York? I would say it was the ice cream in the Cornell Dairy Bar, but no, it was a lot more than that. So even before this competition, we were actively looking for a headquarters in the United States and looking at grow zones and regions and where is the best place to the mix of molecular biology and agri-tech. That's really been our focus. The core team has been here twice in the last 2 months. We were blown away by our reception, specifically in the Cornell area, but I mean really also up in Seneca County. In Cornell, we found talent recruitment. We met with multiple members of the faculty. We're involved in recruitment actually right now from this region, so we talked about a pipeline of people that we can, that are coming out of as postdocs in molecular biology. We met with the greenhouse optimization folks, and to be frank, we have not seen as good of a greenhouse situation and optimization in either the UK or the US anywhere. The growth chambers in the plant science faculty in Cornell were outstanding. And we kept doing this. We went up to Seneca and saw the processing facilities. And moreover, even in the farming regions, I mean, this region has cabbage, has lettuce, crops that we grow, and we can utilize them to grow our products. So we're really, really excited to be here. I think this is reflected in the impact that we believe we're going to have. Now, this is only over the next 3 years, but to be frank, as we move here and build here and grow here, this obviously takes more than 3 years. We grow a lot longer. We feel that we can not only grow talent here, build talent, hire talent, and retain talent, but really attract talent to the region. I think, what we found is one of the region's greatest strengths is that confluence, at least for us in particular as Kyomei, is that confluence of molecular biology, of scientific expertise that we can tap into, and at the same time, that ability to scale in an agri-tech way. So all the things that we need to have here to scale are really right here in the region, from the lab space all the way until farming and greenhouses and to scaling. A little summary, we're bringing a really top-notch team, making this happen now. We're ready to move here. Our innovation is not only credible, but we feel it's really a game-changing breakthrough in not only in plant science, but in fundamental methods of food production. And this has been vetted by the best scientists in the world in this field. While we do have a new platform, the business model is established as a direct route to commercialization. We're tapping into already existing supply chains. I should mention as well, we're prepared to de-risk the investment of Grow New York. We're middle of raising a round right now. We've already raised the previous round. We're happy to double whatever investment we receive from Grow New York on our own dime at the minimum. And I think that, moreover, we're meeting a fundamental need of the customers. All the data suggests that this is the biggest need for our industry. This is the biggest need in the plant-based meat industry, and that's the need we're addressing. And lastly, Grow New York. We're so excited to be here. We're Kyomei. We grow meat proteins in plants. Thank you very much.
That's great. Excellent job, Kyomei. We have 9.5 minutes, judges. Let's give them a hand. Woo! Over to you, judges, for a first question. And I think, Mary, you might be leading us off.
Oh, great. Yeah, thanks so much, Myra and Kyoti. Congratulations on a great pitch and also sharing with us, which I think is a very interesting but also a very important technology. So I understand that you're still really early stage, but I'd like to know exactly where are you in the development process? I know kind of where you are in the seeds, but what have you actually tested or tasted that makes you think that this is going to be so important?
Okay, I will start. So our plant is growing in the lab, and we haven't done growing plant in the field because of the regulation around the GM. So that's why also we think this region is ideal for us because we can do research and also grow our plant outside in the field. Do you want to add something, Mia?
Yeah, so I mean, we're constrained in the UK. One of the reasons we're coming to the US is, that's obvious because of the regulations in the US and the UK. We've proved this out at lab scale. So it is early stage. We have tasted our product at lab scale. So we have a product, but at lab scale, not at commercial scale. But the next level is scaling and growing in the greenhouse and make massive quantities of it, if that answers it, yeah.
So when you say you tested it, but have you tasted it? So,
yeah.
If so, how have you tasted it? What does it go into that?
Sure. So we did a taste test in a lab, and we took our product and we put it into, I don't want to say brand names, but we put it into plant-based meat. So with and without, at roughly about 2% concentration levels. Small meatballs, about 30, 40 grams. And we did blind taste testing with a lot of people. And I think the results were unequivocal. I mean, you could taste a very clear difference. So we tasted meatballs, about 30, 40 grams. We could send you a video of the blindfolds. And we had it tasted. And I think it was unequivocal across the board. There was one person who didn't like it, but he didn't like the taste of meat. So, but everyone, it was very clear, and I think it backs up what we know scientifically about the heme proteins. So we knew this scientifically, and then we actually tasted it. And I think that really sort of solidified, like, no, this is real life. Like you could taste it. So yeah.
So I think we're ready for another question. Laura, do you have one?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. So I understand that coming to the U.S. makes it easier to grow the plants in the field, but do you have any concerns about the market for genetically modified food, and that the people who might be attracted to your product would be those who also might be concerned about eating something that's considered genetically modified? Have you done any work to ascertain if that would be the case?
Can I start? So yes, our plant is GM, but as you know, GM are widely accepted, and indeed, over 90% of the cash crops on the market in USA are genetically modified. And our plant can grow as natural as organic, except for being GMO. We can grow our plant without synthetic pesticide or synthetic fertilizer. And it's always the balance between organic and sustainability. We are democratizing the access to healthier plant-based by using our technology.
Okay, is this better on my
Yep,
microphone?
that's great. Just talk right to the mic.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up a little bit on that because as being an organic farmer, we cannot use any genetic modified plants and have it certified as organic. So that would be the concern I would have for certain customers, certainly not everybody.
Yes, I think you make a very fair point. We will not be able to, in the sense that I think out of all the GMOs, we're probably the least GMO-like, but because we don't have no dispersal issues in terms of the seeds. But it's true that we would be, by the USDA laws, we would be considered GMO. I think that, yeah, it is a trade-off. Certainly, yeah, the people who want only organic produce as certified by the GMO would have that issue. But if you look at the world population and how many people could use this, so that's really, it's a balance. But that answers it better. But yeah, there is a certain limitation in that sense.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Annie, do you have a question next?
Yes, thanks, guys. Great one question is, could you please, sorry, I'm getting used to this mic. Could you please tell me a little bit about how you're going to compete with other technologies, especially in the advancing science around cellular technology? It feels like it's a little more ahead of you. What's your competitive advantage going to be, especially in pricing, et cetera?
Yeah, I think this gets really, really interesting. It's like a really longer conversation. I think fundamentally, and it's interesting because we've talked with many, many cell-based companies. A lot of them want our product to use in their growth media. So as an aside, but that's another little angle. But I think fundamentally there's obviously open questions on the sustainability of the cell-based industry. And I'm not here to discuss one way or the other. I think fundamentally if you think about the process of cell-based media and versus a molecular farming approach which uses plants. So at the end of the day, I mean, if you look at the cost structure of just getting product to market, you're looking at growing a lettuce in a field versus cell media and the sterilization that you need to have in those bioreactors and in that cell. I think it becomes almost clear. So I think that long term, if you look at this, in 5 or 10 years, you have a fundamental competitive advantage, you have a sustainable competitive advantage that no one really could get into that moat because you can't get to that cost of growing lettuce in a lab, full stop. I mean, there's even just the sterilization you need to have, you would just not get there. So while there probably will always be a room for high value protein production for certain specific pharma things that need that kind of sterilization, I think personally that it will not remain that way in the plant or animal proteins. I think it eventually can.
Great. Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
John Caltabiano, do you have a follow-up?
Sure. Great presentation, and I've enjoyed your discussion here. One quick question. I assume you're really the taste that goes into meat. Is that how you would define yourself? If it was one word, it's the taste, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Then the second one is, you talked about doing testing in your lab. Have you had any independent lab testing or other third parties that just sort of confirm your suspicions?
So it also gets into Grow New York because we're already talking with the sensory lab here to do it. But no, so we did it with a number of independent parties in our lab. We did not third party out. This is very early stages. I think the best answer to that is, first of all, yes, we will do it. I think second is we have a very good idea on the difference it makes, both on the science level, what it should make, and what it actually makes by people. But the simple answer to your question is no, we have not had an independent lab do it. We're in discussions with doing that now. But I think we have every reason to believe that, in fact, and this is, again, been shown more in the science of what the heme iron proteins do to the taste. Yeah, that's probably the best way to answer that. Yeah.
Great. Let's squeeze in one more question. John, Heng, do you want to go?
Really great presentation. What do you see as your major hurdle from going from lab to your initial production?
I would say that optimization of growing conditions, probably. So in a technical hurdle is once you've proven this out in a lab, which obviously has a lot of parameters, you go into a place with less parameters and see how you can get the yield to the same yield that you have now. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. It's not so much a technical challenge, but more like just like a time-consuming process. You have to keep tweaking and optimizing for growing. It's not like a challenge, but it's a process, I would say. So that's what we're doing now. That's why we're here.
That's great. All right. Well, thank you so much, judges. I think we'll call that. Oh, you got a quick one? Go for it, Annie.
I have a really quick one. Your timing is really aggressive. How do you believe you can meet the timing that you've laid out?
I mean, on the, yeah, I mean, I think, as I mentioned in the presentation, I think the advantage here is that you have about a year and a half of building and R&D and really optimization is what we have. But then once you start to scale, once you have the seeds, you can scale as quickly as you can grow. So it's really not that complicated. Once you have the fundamental seeds of your innovation, so you have the actual seed of the plant, and it's been modified, you know what it is. It's just a question of growing it. So that's why you start seeing in year 2, year 3, suddenly you can scale because you're literally constrained by the amount of growing space that you have.
Great. Well, thank you. Let's give a hand to Kyomei. It's always hard to go first.